Chapter 12, which starts on Sunday, December 22nd. 12. Help us save our home. Sign our petition. Only takes a minute. Mr. Johnson, please sign our petition. Hey, Miss Walker, did you hear about us having to leave our home? Want to sign our petition? A cold front had entered New York City the night before, and temperatures had plunged into the 30s. The Vanderbeeker kids were bundled up in their heaviest winter coats, weighed down with scarves, hats, earmuffs, and multiple pairs of socks. Jessie addressed Lainey in so many layers that Issa feared if Lainey fell down, she wouldn't be able to get up by herself. Together, they canvassed the sidewalk outside their building on 141st Street, equipped with clipboards and pencils. The night before, they had made multiple copies of the following petition. It read, Save our home. Mr. Biederman, the landlord at the Red Brownstone on 141st Street, refuses to renew the lease held by the Vanderbeeker family. Without the Vanderbeeker family, there would be a decline in happiness and quality of life in Harlem. Don't let it happen. We, the undersigned, respectfully ask that Mr. Biederman renew the Vanderbeeker lease indefinitely. And that's the space for the petition. Since the internet was disconnected, Mama and Papa had gone to the library to use the computer to look up apartment listings. They asked the kids to go to Miss Josie and Mr. Jeet's place because the real estate broker was showing the apartment that morning. It gave the Vanderbeeker kids the perfect opportunity to collect signatures for their petition while their parents were gone. Miss Josie and Mr. Jeet sat on the brownstone stoop, a fleece blanket spread over their laps, keeping an eye on things. The kids were spaced out along the street, flagging down their neighbors and other pedestrians, explaining their plight. Each had his or her own unique approach. If you sign this petition, I'll give you a giant hug, Lainey said to anyone who passed by. She was getting the most signatures. Hyacinth was a hit among people walking their dogs. She had baked a fresh batch of peanut butter dog biscuits that morning and was handing them out like Halloween candy. Oliver had called Jimmy L. earlier to round up his group of friends to support the petition. At the moment, Oliver was surrounded by his basketball buddies, who signed their own names and made up additional names and addresses to fill up the sheet. I think Don Old Doc is a little too obvious, Oliver said as he looked over Jimmy L's shoulder. Dang, I thought it was a good one. Jimmy L's voice was muffled by his scarf. He scratched out the fictitious name and wrote Mike L. Jordan instead. Issa was down at the corner talking to Mrs. Castleman. We had no idea you were moving, dear, Mrs. Castleman said, patting Issa's shoulder with a gloved hand. Benny knew, Issa said, avoiding Mrs. Castleman's eyes as she twisted the pen around the string that attached it to the clipboard. Jessie told him yesterday. I wonder why he didn't say anything about it, Mrs. Castleman replied, but he has seemed grouchy lately. She leaned toward Issa confidentially. You know how teenagers get. I'll tell him to come by. You always make him feel better. Issa reached out and grabbed Mrs. Castleman's arm. No, it's okay. I'll stop by the bakery soon. Issa's strange visit with Benny the previous day was still bothering her. She handed Mrs. Castleman the clipboard. Do you want to sign our petition? We're trying to convince the Biederman to let us stay. Mrs. Castleman abruptly dropped the clipboard and it clattered to the street. Issa bent down to pick it up, and when she rose, she saw that Mrs. Castleman's face had turned pale. Mrs. Castleman, is everything okay? Yes, sorry. I forgot Mr. Biederman was your landlord, Mrs. Castleman said, her hands trembling. You know the Biederman? I mean, Mr. Biederman? No. Yes. Well, not well. Mrs. Castleman pivoted and walked away from Issa. Mrs. Castleman? Issa called out, but Mrs. Castleman waved her arm as if she was shooing away a bad dream. Issa watched her disappear and then crossed the street to join Jessie. Hey, Mr. Voulos, Jessie called out. Sign our petition. Hey, you, guy in that black hat. I know you see me. What's your name? Freddie? When Jessie paused to blow into her hands and rub them together, Issa leaned into her sister. I just saw Mrs. Castleman, and I think she knows the Biederman, Issa whispered. You know, she acted really weird yesterday when I mentioned his name, Jessie said. Before Jessie and Issa could talk more, a new batch of neighbors came out, and the twins got busy getting more signatures. When the Vanderbeeker kids had been out for about an hour, they convened back at the brownstone. Miss Josie and Mr. Jeet looked relieved to go inside. My bones are chilled, Miss Josie said, as she led the way to the front door. Come on, Lainey dear, let's go inside and warm up with a little visit from Paganini. Lainey put on her panda jacket, collected Paganini, and grabbed the small Christmas tree before heading to the second floor. Pausing before Miss Josie and Mr. Jeet's door, she looked up at the third floor. It was very dark and very creepy up there. Lainey set Paganini's carrier on the doormat, then carried the little tree upstairs. The stairs felt unsteady, as if they would collapse. Was the brownstone trying to keep her from going upstairs? Lainey held the tree tighter and went up 3 more steps. She knew the Beaselman needed a Christmas tree more than anyone. She got up to the third floor, set the tree right down in front on his doorstep, and hurried back down to the second floor and knocked on the door. It opened immediately. My dear Panda Lainey, said Miss Josie, after glancing at her little friend wrapped in her panda attire. Panda Lainey stepped inside and said hi to Mr. Jeet, while Miss Josie busied herself chopping carrots, pouring glasses of milk, and setting out a plate of raspberry jam cookies. Panda Lainey unzipped Paganini's bag, and the little rabbit hopped out with a flourish, gazing around for something edible, nose twitching rhythmically. Finding nothing, he made his way over to the bookcase and attempted to dig a hole through the carpet. Mr. Jeet held a small piece of carrot in his hand. Paganini, come, he commanded. Paganini, hearing the voice of the man who gave him delicious carrots, hopped over and was rewarded by a treat and a gentle ear rub. Panda Lainey took turns giving the command, Paganini responding regardless of where Lainey went Panda Lainey took turns giving the command, Paganini responding regardless of where Lainey went in the apartment. For his final test, Panda Lainey went into Miss Josie and Mr. Jeet's bedroom, then called, Come! Paganini zigzagged his way out of the living room, skidded on the wood floor, and found Panda Lainey with no problem. He did it! Panda Lainey cried, jumping up and down and almost knocking down a vase filled with wildflowers onto the carpet. Mr. Jeet laughed with a funny, heh, heh, heh. Together, Mr. Jeet and Panda Lainey worked with Paganini a few more minutes before ending their training session. After Panda Lainey said goodbye, she couldn't help peeking upstairs at the door to the Biedermans' apartment. The Christmas tree was gone. And that is the end of chapter 12.